In the vast expanse of space, humanity had always wondered if we were alone. We'd spent centuries gazing at the stars, sending signals into the darkness, hoping for a response. But as the old saying goes, be careful what you wish for. When they finally arrived, it wasn't with the peaceful intentions we dreamed about in our sci-fi stories. They called themselves the Nexarians, a species that had conquered 12 galaxies through their supposed immortality. Their biomechanical bodies could repair any damage, regenerate lost limbs, and even reconstruct themselves from the smallest remaining pieces. They'd never known defeat, never tasted failure, and never encountered a species that could stand against them. Until they met us. I remember that gray Tuesday morning like it was yesterday. I was just a junior officer at the Global Defense Command when their massive ships darkened our skies. Their message was simple: surrender or be eliminated. They gave us 24 hours to decide, confident in their superiority. What they didn't know was that humanity had a history of defying impossible odds. While their technology was advanced, their arrogance was their weakness. They'd grown complacent after millennia of easy victories. They expected us to cower, to bend the knee like all the others before us. Instead, we did what humans do best. We adapted, we innovated, and we fought back with everything we had. Our first victory came not through brute force, but through understanding. A team of scientists working around the clock discovered something fascinating about their regenerative abilities. It wasn't perfect. It had limits. More importantly, it had a pattern. And if there's one thing humans excel at, it's finding patterns and exploiting them. The Nexarians had never encountered a species quite like us. While they were physically superior in every way, they couldn't comprehend our resourcefulness, our determination, or our sheer stubbornness in the face of defeat. They didn't understand that humans don't just fight with weapons. We fight with our minds, our spirits, and our unwavering will to survive. As I sit here in my office, looking at the holographic display of our ongoing battles, I can't help but smile at the irony. These unkillable aliens, who had spread terror across the cosmos, were learning a harsh lesson about humanity. They were learning that immortality doesn't guarantee victory, and that sometimes the most dangerous opponent isn't the strongest, but the most innovative. But our early successes came at a heavy price. Cities lay in ruins, millions were displaced, and the scars of war ran deep across our planet. Yet somehow, these losses only strengthened our resolve. Each defeat taught us something new, each sacrifice brought us closer to understanding their weaknesses, and each battle showed them that Earth wouldn't fall as easily as their previous conquests. The turning point came when we discovered something they'd never expected, a way to turn their own immortality against them. But that discovery also brought with it a terrible choice, one that would test not just our capability to win, but our humanity itself. As I prepare to brief the Security Council on our latest findings, I can't help but wonder, in our fight to save humanity, how much of our humanity are we willing to risk? The alarms are blaring now. Another attack is imminent, but this time we're ready. This time we have a plan. And this time, these supposedly unkillable aliens are about to learn why humanity has survived everything our harsh universe has thrown at us. Because sometimes the deadliest weapon isn't immortality. It's the sheer determination to never give up. The real question is, are they ready for what comes next? The Security Council chamber fell silent as I presented our latest discovery. The holographic display showed the intricate network of biomechanical pathways that made up a Nexarian's regenerative system. It was beautiful in its complexity, but within that complexity lay their potential downfall. Their immortality isn't magic, I explained, pointing to a pulsing node in the hologram. It's an advanced form of molecular restructuring, guided by what we're calling their core consciousness. Every time they regenerate, this consciousness sends out a signal that rebuilds their form based on stored information, like a biological 3D printer with an unlimited supply of material. The council members leaned forward, their faces illuminated by the blue glow of the hologram. We'd spent months analyzing debris from fallen Nexarians, piecing together their secrets, while they continued their relentless assault on our major cities. What we found changed everything we thought we knew about them. Their regeneration wasn't instantaneous. It followed rules, patterns, and most importantly, it required energy. Massive amounts of it. Each time they rebuilt themselves, they had to draw power from somewhere. That's when we noticed something strange in our atmospheric readings. During major battles, when multiple Nexarians were regenerating simultaneously, there were measurable fluctuations in the electromagnetic field around them. They're not just rebuilding themselves, Dr. Chen, our lead physicist, interrupted. They're pulling energy directly from their surroundings, from the environment, from our power grids, even from their own ships. It's why our cities experience blackouts during major confrontations. They're literally feeding off our infrastructure to heal themselves. This revelation led to our first real advantage. We began setting traps, creating contained areas that seemed to be rich in energy sources. The Nexarians, drawn to these power-dense zones during battle, would find themselves cut off from their energy supply at crucial moments. It wasn't enough to destroy them, but it slowed them down. For the first time, we had a way to fight back effectively. But our discovery came with a troubling implication. The Nexarians weren't just here to conquer Earth. They needed it. Our planet's magnetic field, its natural energy systems, even our technology, it was all potential fuel for their species. Earth wasn't just another territory to claim. It was a battery they intended to drain dry. As I stood there, watching the council process this information, a message flashed across my neural implant. Our early warning systems had detected something unusual. The Nexarian ships were moving into a new formation we'd never seen before. They were concentrating their forces above the Pacific Ocean, gathering in numbers that made my blood run cold. There's more. I continued, my voice steady despite the growing dread. We've detected a pattern in their attacks. They're not just random assaults. They're testing us, learning our responses, adapting their strategies. And now they're preparing for something big. The room erupted in urgent whispers as I shared the latest satellite imagery. The Nexarian ships had arranged themselves in a massive spiral pattern, and energy readings were off the charts. Whatever they were planning, it would dwarf anything we'd seen before. But we had one last card to play, hidden in our most secure facility. Our scientists had been working on a project that could change everything. We found a way to not just disrupt their regeneration process, but potentially trap their consciousness in an endless loop of failed reconstruction. It was theoretical, untested, and if we were wrong, it could make things infinitely worse. As alarms began blaring throughout the complex, I looked at the faces around the table. The weight of our next decision hung heavy in the air. We had to choose, stick with our current strategy of defensive warfare, or risk everything on an untested weapon that could either save humanity or seal our doom. The Nexarians were about to make their move. The question was, were we ready to make ours? The next 48 hours were a blur of emergency meetings, rapid deployments, and last-minute preparations. Our satellites tracked the growing spiral of Nexarian ships above the Pacific, their energy readings now so intense they were interfering with our instruments. Whatever they were planning, it would begin soon. We called it Project Paradox, our desperate attempt to turn the Nexarians' greatest strength into their ultimate weakness. The theory was elegant in its simplicity. If their consciousness guided their regeneration, what would happen if we trapped that consciousness in a state of constant confusion? Like a computer caught in an endless loop, unable to complete its primary function. The prototype was smaller than I expected. A network of specialized electromagnetic pulse generators modified to emit a specific frequency we discovered in their regenerative pattern. In theory, it would disrupt their ability to properly reconstruct themselves, creating a cascade of errors in their system. But the risk was enormous. If we were wrong, the energy backlash could wipe out our remaining defense systems. All personnel, battle stations. The announcement echoed through the underground command center as we monitored the situation. The Nexarian spiral formation had begun to rotate, creating a visible distortion in the clouds above. The ocean beneath their ships churned violently, and our sensors detected massive energy fluctuations throughout the region. They're not preparing for an attack. Dr. Chen's voice cracked with realization as she studied the readings. They're trying to tap into the Earth's magnetic field directly. If they succeed, they'll have unlimited energy for regeneration. We'll never be able to stop them. The implications hit us like a physical blow. This wasn't just another battle. It was their endgame. With access to Earth's magnetic field, they could regenerate endlessly, making them truly unstoppable. Everything we learned about their weaknesses, every small victory we'd achieved, would become meaningless. We had minutes, maybe hours at most, to make our move. Project Paradox was barely out of theoretical testing, but we were out of options and out of time. The prototype had to work. It had to. The deployment order went out. Our remaining aircraft carriers moved into position, each carrying a piece of the prototype network. The plan was to surround their formation and activate all devices simultaneously, creating a field that would encompass their entire fleet. Timing would be critical. We'd only get one shot at this. As our forces moved into position, the Nexarians seemed to sense something was wrong. Their outer ships began breaking formation, moving to intercept our carriers. But we'd anticipated this. Our ground-based defense systems lit up the sky with concentrated electromagnetic pulses, not to damage them, but to mask our true intentions. The tension in the command center was unbearable as we watched the carriers reach their designated positions. The Nexarian spiral had begun to glow with an eerie blue light, and instruments showed they were minutes away from achieving their goal. Whatever we were going to do, it had to be now. I looked around the room at the faces of humanity's last hope, scientists, soldiers, and strategists who'd worked tirelessly to bring us to this moment. In their eyes, I saw fear, determination, and something else, the unshakable human spirit that had brought us this far. My hand hovered over the activation switch as the final carrier confirmed its position. Above us, the sky had turned into a swirling vortex of energy, and the very air seemed to crackle with power. Everything we'd learned about the Nexarians, every sacrifice we'd made, had led to this moment. "May whatever gods exist help us," I whispered and pressed the switch. The world held its breath, waiting to see if humanity's last gambit would save us all or doom us to final defeat. The moment I pressed the switch, every screen in the command center went dark. For a terrifying second, absolute silence fell over the room. Then, through the darkness, a sound began to build, not the high-pitched whine of the prototype activating, but a deep, resonant hum that seemed to come from everywhere at once. The screens flickered back to life, but what they showed made no sense. The Nexarian ships weren't being disrupted as we planned. Instead, they were changing. The spiral formation began to pulse with a strange, rhythmic pattern that matched the humming sound perfectly. It was as if they were responding to our signal, but not in the way we'd expected. "This is impossible," Dr. Chen whispered, her fingers flying over her console. "They're not fighting the signal. They're absorbing it, amplifying it. The pattern. It's not random. It's a response. They're trying to communicate." Before anyone could process this revelation, a new signal cut through our communications. Unlike their previous mechanical transmissions, this one felt different, more organic, almost desperate. The message that followed shook us to our core. "Humans of Earth," the voice resonated through our systems, "you have done what no species has managed in 10,000 years. You have awakened us from our prison." The truth hit us like a thunderbolt. The Nexarians weren't an invasion force. They were refugees, trapped in an endless cycle of regeneration by an ancient enemy. Their supposed immortality wasn't a strength. It was a curse. Their consciousness had been locked in these biomechanical forms, forced to conquer and consume energy in a desperate attempt to break free. Our prototype hadn't disrupted their regeneration cycle. It had synchronized with their original consciousness frequency, giving them a chance to break through their programming for the first time in millennia. We had accidentally created a key to their prison. But our moment of revelation was cut short by a new threat. The sky above the Pacific began to tear open, revealing a darkness deeper than space itself. Through this rift, massive shapes began to emerge, the true enemy, the ones who had imprisoned the Nexarians, finally revealing themselves after thousands of years. "They're coming," the Nexarian voice warned. "You have freed us, But in doing so, you have attracted their attention. They will not allow another species to break their control. The command center erupted into chaos as new readings flooded our screens. These entities made the Nexarians look primitive by comparison. They were living shadows, beings of pure energy that defied our understanding of physics itself. We now faced an impossible choice. The Nexarians, our former enemies, offered an alliance. Their knowledge and newly freed power combined with human ingenuity and determination. But could we trust them? Could we risk everything on the word of beings who had been trying to destroy us just hours before? As the shadow beings descended toward Earth, we had seconds to decide. The Nexarians' spiral formation began to shift, creating a protective barrier between Earth and the emerging threat. They were buying us time to make our choice, but not much. I looked at the faces around me, seeing the same question in every eye. We had started this day hoping to save humanity from one alien threat. Now we faced something far worse, with only our former enemies standing between us and total annihilation. The shadow beings were almost upon us. The next few minutes would determine not just the fate of humanity, but of two species fighting for their very existence. And somehow, I had to make a decision that would change the course of history forever. The real war was about to begin. In that critical moment, humanity made its choice. We sided with the Nexarians, not out of trust, but out of understanding. Like us, they had fought against impossible odds. Like us, they had endured. And now, like us, they faced extinction at the hands of these shadow beings. The alliance was immediate and unprecedented. Our scientists worked with their newly freed consciousness to modify Project Paradox. What was meant to be a weapon became something entirely different, a shield that combined human ingenuity with Nexarian energy manipulation. We had hours at most before the shadow beings would breach our atmosphere. The plan was audacious, perhaps even insane. We would use Earth's magnetic field, the very thing the Nexarians have been trying to tap into, as a weapon. But this time, both our species would work together to channel it. The Nexarians' spiral formation wasn't just for show. It was a massive energy conductor, and now we understood its true purpose. As the shadow beings descended, their darkness consuming everything in their path, we launched our counterattack. Every power station, every energy grid on Earth was diverted into the Nexarian spiral. The oceans themselves seemed to glow as we channeled the planet's electromagnetic field through their formation. The shadow beings struck first, their attack rippling through reality itself. Cities went dark, communications failed, and for a moment, it seemed like all was lost. But then something remarkable happened. Where their darkness touched our combined shield, it began to fracture, splitting into prismatic shards of light. Now, the command echoed across what remained of our communications network. Every human-operated generator, every Nexarian ship, pulsed in perfect synchronization. The spiral formation transformed into a blinding vortex of energy, turning our planet's magnetic field into a weapon unlike anything ever seen in the universe. The shadow beings recoiled, their form disrupted by the combined power of two species fighting for survival. But we didn't stop there. The Nexarians had learned something during their imprisonment. The shadow beings' greatest weakness was their own arrogance. They never expected their victims to work together. In a final, desperate gambit, we reversed the energy flow. Instead of projecting our shield outward, we pulled their darkness in, trapping them in a cage of their own making. The same prison they had used to trap the Nexarians for millennia was turned against them. The sky above Earth erupted in a display that would be remembered for generations. The shadow beings, caught in our trap, were compressed into a singularity of their own dark energy. In their final moments, they tried to break free, but the combined will of two species held firm. When the light faded and the dust settled, we found ourselves in a changed world. The Nexarians, freed from their curse, began to revert to their original forms, beings of pure energy, but not darkness, light, life, and consciousness in its purest form. But the victory came with a final, bittersweet revelation. The energy expended in the battle had fundamentally altered Earth's magnetic field. While our planet would recover, the Nexarians could no longer safely remain. Their energy forms would disrupt our world's natural balance. As their ships prepared to depart, they left us with a gift, the knowledge of how to harness energy in ways we never imagined possible, and a promise. They would return one day when both our species had evolved enough to exist together. In the end, humanity's greatest victory wasn't just surviving the impossible. It was proving that even the most bitter enemies could become allies when faced with a common threat. The unkillable aliens had become our unlikely saviors, and in doing so, they'd helped us discover something about ourselves. We were stronger than we knew, more capable than we'd imagined, and ready to take our place among the stars, not as conquerors or victims, but as equals in a universe far more complex and wonderful than we'd ever dreamed. The war was over, but our story was just beginning. 5 years have passed since that day when the sky burned with the light of two civilizations fighting as one. Earth has healed, though the scars remain. Cities rebuilt with strange iridescent materials recovered from the battle, and new technologies that blur the line between human innovation and alien legacy. The Nexarians' gift of energy manipulation has transformed our world in ways we're still trying to understand. I stand at the window of the newly constructed Global Defense and Research Center, watching ships take off into the sunset. They're not military vessels anymore, but exploration craft built using the hybrid technology left behind. Humanity's first steps into deep space, guided by the star maps our former enemies shared with us. The changes weren't just technological. The day we fought alongside the Nexarians changed something fundamental in human consciousness. Old rivalries between nations fell away as people realized just how vast and how dangerous the universe truly was. We had glimpsed powers beyond our comprehension, and it made our earthly disputes seem painfully small. Dr. Chen leads the new interstellar communication project now. Every day, her team works to decipher more of the data the Nexarians left behind. They're like breadcrumbs, she says, leading us slowly but surely toward a greater understanding of our place in the cosmos. The shadow beings weren't the only threat out there, but neither are we alone in facing them. Sometimes, on clear nights, we can still see echoes of the battle in the aurora borealis. The Earth's magnetic field, while stable, has been forever altered. These new patterns in the sky serve as a reminder of both our vulnerability and our strength. Children point to them and tell stories about the day humans and aliens fought together to save two species. The most profound change, though, has been in how we view ourselves. The Nexarians' journey from enemies to allies taught us something crucial about assumption and understanding. Every scientific discovery, every technological advancement we make using their knowledge, comes with deep consideration of its impact. We learned the hard way that power without wisdom is a path to destruction. Yesterday, our long-range sensors detected something interesting, a faint signal matching the unique frequency of Nexarian consciousness. They're out there, watching our progress, waiting for the day when we're ready to join them among the stars. Not as the conquered or conquerors, but as equals who earned our place through courage, innovation, and the willingness to trust when everything was on the line. We've started finding other signals, too, from civilizations we never knew existed. Some are broadcasting warnings about the shadow beings, while others seek allies against unknown threats. The universe, we're learning, is far more complex and interconnected than we ever imagined. Our victory didn't just save Earth. It announced humanity's presence on a cosmic stage. As I finish recording this account for future generations, I can't help but smile at that irony. The unkillable aliens who came to conquer us ended up teaching us how to survive among the stars. Their gift wasn't just technology or knowledge. It was perspective. They showed us that true strength isn't in being unkillable, but in knowing what's worth fighting for. The Nexarians will return someday, when both our species have evolved enough to coexist. Until then, we have work to do. There are stars to reach, civilizations to meet, and lessons to learn. The shadow beings weren't the only threat in this vast universe, but now humanity stands ready, wiser, and stronger than before. After all, we're the species that turned immortal conquerors into allies, trapped beings of pure darkness in their own prison, and lived to tell the tale. Whatever comes next, we'll face it the same way we always have, with determination, ingenuity, and the unshakable human spirit that makes us who we are. This isn't the end of our story. In many ways, it's just the beginning.